I'm Richard Adams, State Representative representing the 80th District in the Ohio House of Representatives. I represent a portion of Darke County and all of Miami County. We're bringing you the State House report, sharing with you information about what's going on in Columbus. Let me begin by starting an update in regard to the third grade reading guarantee. This is an important piece of legislation. There have been other attempts previously to make sure that all youngsters could read at least at the third grade level by the time they completed the third grade. Basically, the reason for that is it's been said that we learn to read and then we read to learn. And those individuals who do not have at least a third grade reading proficiency frequently are high school dropouts, or they're individuals who just simply do not do well in the rest of their educational program. So the entire state now is working toward making sure that every student, by the time they complete the third grade, has the proficiency of a third grade reader. Now, we have some statistics here that I thought might be of interest to you, and basically we have about 12% of the students in Ohio who had not passed the third grade reading test as they began the third grade. Now, this means that in addition to making available remediation in the third grade, intensifying the efforts to help the student learn to read, not only during the school year, but then in the summer that follows, so that the student, by the time they're ready to start the fourth grade, they will have had that third grade proficiency accomplished. Some students who are very close to this, they begin the fourth grade but still have some additional remediation so that they can be brought up to that third grade reading ability level. Now, some students are excused from that, students that may have a reason. For example, maybe it's English as a second language for them. They are given more instruction and more time to get that third grade proficiency. And we have some students who are special ed students. They too would have individualized attention. We're hopeful that as we have school starting this next fall, that we will have all of our boys and girls reading at that third grade proficiency level as they begin the fourth year of education. I must say to you that in Miami and Darke counties, the teachers, parents, and the kids are doing very well, and we anticipate that we will have all of our third graders reading at the appropriate level. Our bigger problem, in fact, the biggest problem in making this happen on a statewide basis, again, as I've said frequently on this State House report, the problem is with our 8 largest cities, where they have not only problems with reading, but a lot of other problems, including dropout rates, and consequently, the 8 largest cities, their efforts, we are pleased that there at least appears to be an opportunity for success. We don't have the final figures yet, but it's something that is being watched by the State Department of Education with the idea that if extra help is needed, extra help will be provided. A couple of other things I want to give you a report on that happened in the State House. Well, one has happened in the State House, the other one will happen in the State House. Let's start with the one that has already happened. Representative Bob Netzley, a name that all of us who have been around here for a while recognize. Bob served 40 years, a little over 40 years, in the Ohio House of Representatives. Of course, with term limits, now no one else can even get close to that. Bob served until term limits were imposed and he was no longer able to continue to serve. But during the 40 plus years that he served in the State House, He had the distinction of being an expert in the insurance area, which is an important area in state government, and the appropriations and spending of state tax dollars. Bob served on the controlling board, which had the authority to say yes or no to some expenditures. He was vice chairman of the appropriations committee, which was a leadership role in deciding what monies would be allocated for which purposes. And then he was also had the expertise that was needed in the insurance area. And it's just amazing the degree to which he became so proficient over his term of service. Now, he also there are a lot of other stories. There are a lot of other stories about Bob in terms of some of the things he did along with his cohorts, all of them conservative. You had to be a conservative to be a cohort of his, although he worked very well with the folks across the aisle as well as the members of his own caucus. I don't have time to even get started with all of the stories, but I'm hopeful that someday there's a book written about the man from Laura who served 40 years in the Ohio House of Representatives. We dedicated a room, a hearing room, that will be called the Robert E. Netzley Hearing Room, where not only will hearings be held by committees who are giving citizens an opportunity to share their viewpoints, but it'll also be used for press conferences and be used by legislators in the House as they might need to have a meeting working on potential legislation. So it's very fitting that this has been done, and I was privileged to be there, and I'll tell you, he is very deserving. I've served now 6 years, and to think that Bob served 40 years driving back and forth from Laura to Columbus, it's just an amazing feat, physically as well as mentally, and he was certainly up to the task, and we all owe Bob and his family, Marge, their children, grandchildren, we owe them a debt of thanks for sharing Bob with us for all those years. The other event that's going to happen is to recognize William Moore McCulloch, who was a lawyer in Piqua, and he's being recognized for a couple of reasons. Number one, he served 3 terms in the Ohio House of Representatives as the Speaker, and at that time it was the longest that anyone had served as Speaker. He left the Ohio House of Representatives when World War II began to join the Army, and I believe he spent time then in Europe. But the other area of recognition for Congressman McCulloch is the fact that he was the architect of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He actually had written legislation in '63, and when President Jack Kennedy and Attorney General Robert Kennedy decided that it was time to have civil rights for all Americans as a part of the law of the land, he then was involved because of his expertise as well as the degree to which his reputation was so high among his colleagues that if he would vote for it, they'd all vote for it. Consequently, they took the bill that he had worked on in '63 and the Civil Rights Act of 1964, about 90% of that bill was written by him. And there was still a big fight. Unfortunately, there had been other times when the House had attempted to have legislation dealing with civil rights for all Americans, only to get it over in the Senate, where it was watered down to the point where it was just not worth anything. And so when the President Kennedy and his Attorney General, Robert Kennedy, came to the congressman and asked for his help, he said, yeah, he would help. However, only on the basis that no amendments, whether in the House or the Senate, could be agreed upon if he did not approve. Now, he wasn't trying to, I think, to throw his weight around. I think what he was trying to do is to make sure that if there were any amendments, they'd be good amendments. There's two kinds of amendments in legislation, good ones and bad ones. He did not want more bad amendments that would water it down till once again it would be a false promise that it really wouldn't provide civil rights for all Americans. It was agreed to, and it passed both the House and the Senate. And Congressman McCulloch was at the signing of the bill by then Lyndon Johnson, who became president upon the unfortunate assassination of President Kennedy. There are many, many pictures available in the newspaper at that time, which many people cut out and still have, showing him at the left shoulder of LBJ, the president, and as he was presented a pin used in the signing of the Civil Rights Act of '64, which was presented to him. It's an amazing story of an accomplishment. It's being recognized by the State House Committee that makes a decision about what is placed in the State House and where it's placed. Outside the House of Representative chambers, and some of you I know because you've asked our office for help in bringing families or school children over for a tour. Outside the House of Representative chambers, there's what's called the Great Hall. As you go up the steps from the rotunda, you arrive in the Great Hall. Over on the west wall, a bust of Congressman McCulloch, Speaker McCulloch, will be placed. This bust will show him presiding over the Ohio House of Representatives. It will be from the waist up, and he will have the gavel. And on a pedestal, there will be a list of his accomplishments, including Speaker of the House, 3 terms, including the architect of the Civil Rights Act of this country of 1964. He was also involved in additional voting rights in 1965 and housing rights in 1968. All of those things will be listed on the pedestal of Bill McCulloch in the Great Hall outside the House of Representatives. You know, we have thousands of school children who come to the State House each year, and we have guides who take them through the State House, showing them the various things. There's a wonderful statue of Abraham Lincoln down in the rotunda. There's a place out in the atrium near one of the giant pedestals that hold the roof up, and a plaque is there designating the spot that Abraham Lincoln stood and gave a speech to citizens who gathered there in Columbus prior to being elected president. Now in the Great Hall there will be a statue of William McCulloch, lawyer from Piqua, speaker and civil rights leader. Now, I think, no doubt, that as the leaders of these tours bring young people to that statue, I hope they say something like this: this man did something that each of you can do. Now, you may not be able to invent an airplane like the Wright brothers. You may not be able to invent a light bulb like Edison, but you can stand up for what's right. This man stood up for what was right in civil rights, voting, housing. And as a result, when asked, why did you do that? He said it was the right thing to do. Young people, you too can do what's appropriate. You too can do something because it's the right thing to do. All of us are capable of that. All of us would have an opportunity to do that. This man did it. You too can do it. I think it'll be a wonderful teaching moment for the boys and girls who come through the State House. And frankly, the name of E McCulloch is going to be, I think, better known, and deservedly so. A humble man. He didn't really seek recognition. What he did was because it was the right thing to do. It'll be a proud moment for all of us who knew him, all of us who knew of him. And we're looking forward to that event being scheduled. I would anticipate it'll happen sometime, probably October, November, and it'll be well publicized. And no doubt there'll be a big delegation from the district that he once represented, that I represent now. It's called now the 80th District. So that's a wonderful piece of news, and we're so delighted that we were able to get this accomplished for a person who is so deserving. I want to talk a little bit about what's going on, or what has gone on. The 130th General Assembly is, we've got about a few months left, and the 130th General Assembly will adjourn, and the 131st General Assembly will be convened, and it too will have a 2-year period, during which time the necessary legislative activity will be conducted. But I want to share with you some of the things that have been done during the 130th General Assembly. First of all, there was $2.7 billion in tax cuts, something that every taxpayer participated in. And we now have $1.48 billion in the rainy day fund. That's what's called the reserve fund. It's the amount of money that the state of Ohio has in reserve in case you need the money for some major reason. I think probably all of you watching have a rainy day fund, or have some funds that you keep in reserve in case you need to get the car fixed, or the washing machine breaks and you need to buy a new one. You have your rainy day fund in order to take care of that. The expenditures that cannot be anticipated, but nonetheless are needed and are very important. What makes this so unusual is this. 4 years ago, I was just beginning my second term, and at the end of my first term, things were rough in Ohio. Things were rough in the United States. I know many of you remember the Great Recession, and it was well underway then. There was a rainy day fund then, and it was spent with the exception of 89 cents. As I began my second term, that's what we had to work with in the rainy day fund, 89 cents. It wouldn't have gone very far. So we had to get the money back in there as quickly as possible, wanting to do that before there might be some major emergency that would require us to have those funds. And so that's been done. And once the fund, and by the way, the limit in the fund is determined by state law. And once you reach the limit in that state law, then any additional funds not needed for expenditures, those then go into tax deductions, tax decreases and that's a part of that tax cut that I mentioned, the $2.7 million. The school districts of Ohio received an increase in funding during the last 2 years of about $1.6 billion. Now that's a lot of money for all of us, but in terms of the degree to which the state has a financial partnership with the schools of Ohio, it's not any more than a start in terms of what needs to be done. And I would anticipate that we're going to see a continuation of additional state funding for schools to promote those areas of instruction that need additional funds. Everything has to be funded based on priority. It's just not a matter of sending the money with the idea that, it's a good thing. It's a matter of priorities. Reading, third grade reading guarantee, that's one of them. Another one is some additional attention to our kindergarten instruction, as well as pre-kindergarten instruction. And there's an area that's really pleasing to me that we have been working on. Some of you may remember I worked over at the Upper Valley, now called Career Center. At that time it was the Upper Valley JVS. And I know of the need for individuals who have the skills and the technical knowledge to go to work for area employers. Some of the jobs require a college degree. Some of them require more than one college degree. Some of them require an associate degree. Some a high school diploma. But you need to have a skill and the technical knowledge. If you've not been in one of our area manufacturing plants, you don't have a good idea what it's like there, what it's all about there. So consequently, we're going to see additional emphasis placed. Recently I saw a newspaper article, and they're talking about close to 50% of the new jobs will require the skills and the technical knowledge in order to be employed. So that's an area where we need to work on, not only from the standpoint that it's going to benefit the young people as they get a job, or those people who are not so young and come back and get additional training and additional skills and get a better job, but it's also a matter of promoting economic development. We need to have everybody who can work be working and have the skills to get a good job. Our unemployment now is down to 5.5%, still too high. We need to continue to work on that. I mentioned the recession. Hey, our economy in this state and this country is fragile. I think that's especially true in this country. We're in debt over $17 billion. That's a lot of debt. And there's no doubt that we've got to be able to, I don't mean 17 billion, I mean 17 trillion. It's amazing, the debt at the federal level. We need to be sure that we have everybody helping pay the costs of the government that we need. So let me go on here. We had another $3 billion in new money for roads and bridges. There wasn't a tax increase. $3 billion in new money, however. I know, we have all seen some we've all seen some potholes, and we all know of some bridges that need some work. It seemed like it was a long time getting the Interstate 75 fixed up, for example, going from the north edge of Pickwill on up to the south edge of Sydney. But $3 billion certainly was a step in the right direction. We had what's called a Joint Resolution 5, and we actually passed that, urging the federal government to have a federal balanced budget amendment. Now, we were the 20th state. It's going to take a few more states for this to happen before it actually would have to force them to go into effect. But we need to continue to move in that direction. It's important we do a good job in Columbus. It's important we do a good job in the county and the cities, the villages, the townships. But listen, it's important that we have a good job being done in Washington, D.C. also. We have made some tax credits available for revitalizing vacant buildings. It's amazing, especially in our big cities, amazing the number of vacant property where people just walked out the front door. And it's not good for the neighbors in terms of their property value. It's certainly not good for the with the treasurer of the county is collecting taxes and somebody's not paying taxes for that property. Somewhere there's a bank that's holding the mortgage that's not receiving payments. We need to make sure that we take these vacant buildings and do something productive with them, and the degree to which the state of Ohio and local government can be a partner in that effort is important. We've had several bills that are interesting. House Bill 144 prohibits minors from purchasing e-cigarettes. Now, you know what an e-cigarette is. This is an electronic cigarette, and you smoke water vapor that has nicotine and maybe some other things added. I've not tried them, don't intend to try them, but it seems to me that if minors shouldn't be buying cigarettes, they also should not be buying e-cigarettes, and that's been taken care of. There's some other things that are going on that I hope will be finished before the end of this General Assembly. House Bill 104 that enhances the treatment of the mentally ill. That's important. So many of these individuals that get a hold of a gun somehow or another and they go someplace where guns are not allowed, and as a result there's no one there to stop them and they start shooting at people. That's just one example of the degree to which we need to help the mentally ill. And we have another bill that is going to phase in some high school graduation requirements, and this is going to enhance student achievement, but it's also going to add more success, as I mentioned a bit earlier, in terms of being ready for the job market. There's been some things going on in the 130th. We have several committees, including the one I chair, and on two other committees of which I'm a member, we've become paperless. That is, we don't print all the bills and all of the testimony. We have it printed once, and it's downloaded into a computer, and we all have these iPads, I think they're called. I'm not real technologically astute, but I know enough to be able to fire up the iPad and be able to read the bill, the testimony, the amendments. Think how many trees we're saving by having all of this on the computer. And if you need hard copy, you can still print off the hard copy. We are saving a lot of trees, and we're saving a lot of money as one by one the committees, and I think we have, 13, 15 committees like that, standing committees, and the goal is to get all of those on. And as far as the meetings of the Ohio House, we have a new computerized system which also is working to eliminate using paper by means of electronic devices. So this saves time, it saves money, and frankly, those are my goals. I'm sure they're your goals, that when we have money sent to Columbus, we want it spent efficiently, economically. And that's a good place to stop as we brought you the State House report. And so until the next time, I'm Richard Adams, your state representative.